Hey guys, what's up? Hoip here. Today I'm going to talk about Navia, and as usual, we're just going to start out with explaining her kit. First, let's cover her burst, as that is what is typically used first in your Navia rotation. Navia's burst is mostly used to generate crystals for your skill, which we will get to later. Navia's burst hits 17 times, plus 1 initial hit on cast, which makes for 18 hits in total. It also doesn't snapshot. Now for Navia's skill. Her skill is the most important part of your kit. Pretty much, press E equals big number. Although, there are a few steps to getting the maximum potential out of her skill. The most important thing is these. These are called crystal shrapnel. You can think of these as stacks for Navia's skill. How you get these stacks is from picking up crystallized shields that you make. Now, before I cover Navia's normal attacks, I'd like to cover one of Navia's passives first. Starting with her A1, she gets a Geo Infusion on her normal attacks after you use her elemental skill that lasts for 4 seconds. This is used to do extra damage with Navia's normal attacks for the most part, as well as generate crystals for her skill. Pretty straightforward, these are just her normal attacks, and that's all there is to it. Now for the last part of Navia's kit, her A4, this just gives 20% attack per Pyro, Growl, Electro, or Hydro character that's in your party. Going back to Navia's skill, you'll notice that you don't get max stacks on your Navia skill all of the time, and that's okay. Although, you want at least 3 stacks on Navia's skill, as it's double the motion value of a 0 stack skill. Every stack after 3 gives 15% geo damage, which is nice, but it's not the end of the world if you don't get these last stacks. Navia's best combo is pretty much N2D. 3 N2D is the max that you can get out of Navia's 4-second infusion. The combo looks like this. As for team building, Navia wants at least one other Geo character in her team, generally speaking. This slot is usually filled by Zhongli. Zhongli is the best Geo option for her. He provides a strong shield, which has great defensive utility, and he provides Res Shred as well as G-Resonance. G-Resonance is something that Navia really wants, as she's an on-field Geo damage dealer. Next up is Bennett, who's another great teammate for Navia because he provides a large attack buff via his burst and noblesse. He also fills in a defensive utility slot because he heals. He also gives Pyro Resonance if you play him with Shangling, although his Pyro aura inflicted on you can sometimes get you one-shot by enemies such as the Hydro Tula. If you want to play Bennett-less teams, you can go for a double Electro Core with Yai and Fischl, or a double Hydro Core with Yelan and Farina. As for Yai and Fischl, the last slot of your team really wants to be Zhongli, and no, Noelle cannot fill in the slot as her shield only lasts for 12 seconds. Now as for Farina and Yelan makes for a great solo Hydro teammate. She also buffs Navia via her burst, which gives damage percent. She also scales very well with the vertical investment, such as constellations on Farina and Navia's signature weapon, as well as constellations on Navia herself. Additionally, both of them make for a great double Hydro Core with either Noelle or Bennett as your last slot. For other Geo teammates that synergize with Navia, there's Albedo and Geo main character, which are both fine options if you don't have Zhongli or if he's on the other side of the abyss. For Albedo, you do have to keep in mind that sometimes his flower breaks against certain bosses or certain enemies in general, which can be a little frustrating. Another thing to note is that if you're playing Albedo in Farina teams, for example something like Navia, Farina, Albedo, Bennett, Albedo can drop below 90% HP very easily, which makes this a problem for Albedo if you're running Harbinger of Dawn. If you're running Kinabar Spindle, which is an event weapon, then you should be fine for the most part. Just keep in mind that Albedo's damage will drop significantly if you play on Harbinger of Dawn with Farina. For Geo main character, he does about 100k DPR in a Bennett Fischl Navia team, and his damage is relatively low or on the lower side, but he does provide a 10% crit rate buff to Navia. And another thing to note is that Navia can shoot through Geo main character's constructs, which is definitely a good thing. As for the final thing, which is Navia herself, she has a lot of options for teams such as Fischl, Yelan, Farina, Noelle, Zhongli, Albedo, Bennett, Shangling, Daimiko, and etc. which makes herself not too flexible of a character, but her teams are very flexible themselves, as in you have a large variety of teammates for Navia to utilize. This helps her be a good all-around unit for most players. The final thing that I want to discuss are future teammates. I personally don't think that Bennett and Zhongli will stick into Navia's teams forever. Eventually, Bennett and Zhongli will be replaced. First of all, Bennett does indeed buff Navia by a lot, but if you look at her signature weapon, passives, and base attack, you'll notice that even without Bennett, Navia has a pretty decent amount of attack, so it's possible that a couple of new characters that might give some sort of buff while providing off-field damage or defensive utility. As for Zhongli, he simply doesn't provide that much for Navia. His additional res shred is great, and so is his defensive utility. He simply doesn't provide much outside of those two things. If there are two characters that could replace Bennett and Zhongli, then I personally think Navia's overall performance would jump to new heights. And that's it for this video. But before the video ends, I do want to give some special thanks to Z for helping me make this video, especially with the thumbnail and team building section. His Twitter and YouTube are in the description, and I also have a Discord server now. The link is in the description. It's currently not very active, but you can change that by joining and becoming an active member. Finally, I'd also like to thank everyone for watching this video. Have a good day.